Commander Sarah Chun stood at the large window of her command center, looking out at the stars. The view should have been beautiful, but all she could see were the empty spaces where human ships used to be. 3 years ago, this system had been home to over 2 million people. Now barely 50,000 remained on New Geneva, and most of them were soldiers or refugees. The war with the Zephyrians had been going on for 30 years. Sarah had been fighting them for half her life. She was only 12 when the tall gray-skinned aliens first attacked human colonies on the edge of space. Back then, humanity had 67 worlds and thought they were strong. Now they had 7 worlds left, and Sarah was not sure how much longer they could hold on. Her communication officer, Lieutenant Torres, walked up behind her. His face looked tired, like everyone else on the station. "Commander, we got another message from the Kalari," he said quietly. Sarah turned around. The Kalari were different from the Zephyrians. They looked almost like living crystals, with smooth, clear skin that seemed to glow from inside. They claimed to be peaceful beings who wanted to help stop wars in the galaxy. For the past 6 months, they had been trying to convince both humans and Zephyrians to meet for peace talks. "What do they say this time?" Sarah asked. Torres handed her the message pad. "They say they have found a neutral place where both sides can meet safely. A space station called Harmony's Edge. They promise that no weapons will be allowed, and they will make sure both sides follow the rules." Sarah read the message carefully. The Kalari had been very patient with both sides. They said they understood that humans and Zephyrians had hurt each other badly, but that more fighting would only make things worse. They offered to be the middle party, helping both sides find a way to live in peace. The problem was that Sarah was not sure humans had any choice left. Their last big battle had been at the Titan system 3 months ago. They lost 12 ships and nearly 4,000 people. Admiral Webb had managed to save most of the fleet, but everyone knew they could not win another fight like that. Sarah walked to her desk and called up the latest reports from their remaining worlds. Mars was running out of food because the Zephyrians had destroyed most of their farming stations. The mining world of Prometheus was still working, but they needed more ships to protect the supply lines. New Geneva was the strongest world left, but even here they were using old equipment and had too few people to fix everything that broke down. The door to her office opened, and Admiral Marcus Webb walked in. Webb was 68 years old and had been fighting the Zephyrians longer than anyone else still alive. His gray hair was always neat, and his uniform was always perfect, but Sarah could see the worry in his eyes. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about the Kalari offer," Webb said, sitting down across from her desk. "I was just reading their latest message. They really think they can make peace happen?" Webb nodded slowly. "I have been studying everything we know about the Kalari. They have never been in a war themselves. They have helped stop 3 other conflicts in the past 100 years. Other alien races seem to trust them." Sarah looked at the star map on her wall. Red dots showed where human worlds used to be. Blue dots showed the 7 worlds they still controlled. Everything else was either empty space or under Zephyrian control. "What do you think the Zephyrians will want?" she asked. Webb was quiet for a moment. "Probably everything. They have always said humans are too dangerous to be allowed to grow strong. But maybe if we give up our military ships and agree to live on just a few worlds, they might let us survive." The idea made Sarah feel sick, but she knew Webb was right. Survival was better than extinction, even if it meant giving up almost everything they had fought for. Over the next week, messages went back and forth between the human leadership, the Kalari, and even the Zephyrians. The aliens agreed to meet, but they had their own demands. They wanted humans to bring no weapons to the peace talks. They also wanted the meeting to include all of the top human leaders, so that any agreement would be final and complete. Sarah did not like the idea of putting all their important people in one place, but Admiral Webb argued that it showed humans were serious about peace. If we want them to trust us, he said, we have to show that we trust them too. The Kalari sent detailed plans for the meeting. Harmony's Edge was a large space station that they had built just for peace talks. It had meeting rooms, living areas, and even gardens where delegates could walk and think quietly. The station had powerful shields and was located in neutral space, far from any military bases. 2 weeks before the meeting, Sarah helped Admiral Webb choose the human delegation. They picked 30 people, including the leaders of all 7 remaining worlds, the top military commanders, and the best diplomats they had left. It was a risk to put so many important people together, but everyone agreed it was their best chance for peace. The night before the delegation left for Harmony's Edge, Sarah sat in her quarters reading reports. Her personal computer chimed with a message marked Personal Admiral Webb. She opened it and found a video message. Webb appeared on her screen, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. Sarah, if you are watching this, it means something has gone wrong at the peace talks. I hope I am being too careful, but I learned long ago that hope is not a strategy. Sarah sat up straighter. Webb continued speaking. 3 years ago, I started a project called Protocol Lazarus. I could not tell anyone about it, not even you, because it had to stay completely secret. If humanity survives the next few days, you need to know about it. The message showed a location in the asteroid belt beyond Prometheus. There is a research facility hidden in the rocks. Dr. Elena Vasquez is in charge of it. If the worst happens, take the remaining fleet there. Elena will explain everything. The message ended, and Sarah stared at the blank screen. Protocol Lazarus? She had never heard of any secret project, and she thought she knew about all of their military operations. What had Webb been planning? The next morning, Sarah stood in the shuttle bay watching Admiral Webb and the other delegates board their ships. Webb looked confident and calm, like he always did before an important mission. He shook hands with Sarah and smiled. Take care of things while we are gone, he said. With luck, we will come back with a peace treaty that lets humanity survive. Sarah watched the small fleet of diplomatic ships leave New Geneva and jump to faster than light speed. As they disappeared into the stars, she felt a cold worry in her stomach. She tried to tell herself it was just normal concern for friends going into a dangerous situation, but something felt wrong. 3 days later, she would learn that her feelings had been right. The peace talks were not what they seemed, and humanity was about to face its darkest hour. But they would also learn that Admiral Webb had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone knew, and that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the deepest betrayal. Sarah Chun woke up to the sound of emergency alarms. The red lights in her quarters were flashing, and her communication device was buzzing with urgent messages. She rolled out of bed and grabbed her uniform, her heart already racing. It was the 3rd day since Admiral Webb and the delegation had left for the peace talks. Sarah had been having trouble sleeping, but she told herself it was just worry. Now the alarms were telling her that something was very wrong. She ran to the command center, still putting on her jacket. Lieutenant Torres was already there, along with most of the night shift crew. Everyone looked scared and confused. What is happening? Sarah demanded as she reached her command station. Torres turned to her with a pale face. Commander, we lost contact with Harmony's Edge 2 hours ago. All communications just stopped. Sarah felt her stomach drop. What do you mean stopped? Equipment failure? No, ma'am. We were receiving regular updates from Admiral Webb every 6 hours, just like planned. The last message came in at 0400. It was normal, just reporting that the talks were going well. Then nothing. Sarah looked at the main screen, which showed the location where Harmony's Edge should be. There was only empty space. Are our sensors working right? Technical Sergeant Kim spoke up from her station. All systems are working fine, Commander. But we are not picking up any signals from that location. No ship signatures, no station energy readings, nothing. Sarah's mind raced. A space station that size could not just disappear. Even if it was destroyed, there would be wreckage, energy signatures, something left behind. Send a scout ship to investigate immediately. Already done, ma'am, Torres replied. Captain Rodriguez left 20 minutes ago in the fast courier ship Aurora. He should reach the location in 4 hours. Sarah nodded, but she had a bad feeling that 4 hours might be too late for whatever they would find. She was about to order increased security when every screen in the command center suddenly went black. For a moment, the room was completely silent except for the hum of the air systems. Then the screens flickered back to life, but instead of showing normal data, they all displayed the same image. It was Admiral Webb, but something was wrong with the picture. It looked old and damaged, like it had been recorded through broken equipment. Webb's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded strange and distorted. Commander Chun, if you are seeing this message, then Protocol Lazarus must be activated immediately. The Kalari have betrayed us. They are working with the Zephyrians. Do not trust any communications from Harmony's Edge. Take the fleet to the coordinates I gave you. Find Dr. Vasquez. She will explain everything. The message repeated 3 times. Then the screens went back to normal. Sarah stared at the displays, trying to understand what had just happened. How could Webb send a message if the station was gone? And how did it get through their security systems? Torres, trace that transmission. I want to know where it came from. Torres worked at his station for several minutes, then looked up with a confused expression. Commander, according to our logs, that message came from Admiral Webb's personal computer. But it was sent using a transmission code that should not exist. Before Sarah could ask what he meant, another alarm started ringing. This time it was the long-range sensor alert. Something big was coming toward their system, and it was moving fast. Multiple contacts, Sergeant Kim reported. At least 40 ships coming in from 3 different directions. They will be here in 6 hours. Sarah looked at the sensor readings and felt her blood turn cold. The ships were a mix of Zephyrian and Kalari designs, working together in perfect formation. It was not a rescue mission or a diplomatic visit. It was an invasion fleet. All stations, battle alert, Sarah ordered. Contact every ship in the system. I want everyone ready to fight in 1 hour. As the crew rushed to prepare for battle, Sarah tried to figure out what had happened. The peace talks had been a trap, that much was clear. But how had the Kalari and Zephyrians planned it so perfectly? And why had Admiral Webb been expecting this? The answer came when her computer system started failing one by one. First, the long-range communications went down. Then the targeting computers began giving wrong information. Finally, the shield started dropping power for no reason that the engineers could find. Commander, Torres called out, his voice full of panic. Something is wrong with our computers. They are acting like they have been infected with some kind of virus. Sarah realized with growing horror what had happened. The Kalari had not just invited human leaders to peace talks. They had used their diplomatic access to plant something in the human computer networks. While everyone was focused on the meetings, the Kalari had been quietly sabotaging human technology. The invasion fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Sarah watched on the screens as Zephyrian and Kalari ships appeared around New Geneva. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they sent a message that was broadcast on every frequency. The message came from a Kalari leader that Sarah recognized from the peace negotiations. His crystal-like face showed no emotion as he spoke. Humans of New Geneva, your military leaders chose to break the peace talks by attacking our station. As a result, the Kalari Collective and the Zephyrian Empire have decided that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. The Kalari were claiming that humans had attacked the peace station. It was a complete lie. But Sarah realized that the rest of the galaxy would only hear the Kalari version of events. The Kalari leader continued. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. All military ships must power down there. Weapons. All government leaders must report to our ships for processing. If you do not comply, every human world will be destroyed. The message ended, and Sarah found herself looking at a hopeless situation. Half of their computer systems were not working. Their shield generators were failing. Many of their weapons could not target properly. And they were facing an enemy fleet that outnumbered them 10-1. Over the next few hours, reports came in from the other human worlds. Mars had been attacked by surprise and was barely holding on. 4 of their smaller colonies had already fallen. Only New Geneva and Prometheus were still fighting, and both were in serious trouble. Captain Rodriguez returned from his mission to where Harmony's edge should have been. His report made everything worse. There was nothing left, Commander. Number. Wreckage, no debris, nothing. It was like the station and everyone on it just disappeared. Sarah sat in her command chair, trying to think of any way to save her people. The Kalari had planned this perfectly. They had eliminated the human leadership, sabotaged their technology, and turned the galaxy against them by claiming humans. Were the aggressors out with 36 hours left in the ultimatum, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She remembered Admiral Webb's message about Protocol Lazarus and Dr. Vasquez. Whatever Webb had been planning, it was their only hope now. Torres, prepare every ship that can still fly. We are leaving New Geneva. Leaving? Commander, where are we going? Sarah looked at the coordinates Webb had given her. They pointed to an empty section of the asteroid belt beyond Prometheus. It seemed like a strange place to hide anything important, but Webb had never been wrong about military strategy. We are going to find out what Admiral Webb was really preparing for, she said. And then we are going to make the Kalari and Zephyrians regret the day they decided to betray humanity. As the remaining human ships prepared to leave New Geneva, Sarah could not know that they were about to discover something that would change not just their war, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The Kalari and Zephyrians thought they had destroyed humanity at its weakest moment. They were about to learn that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the deepest betrayal. Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the cruiser Defiance, watching the asteroid field grow larger on the main screen. Behind her, 17 ships followed in formation. They were all that remained of humanity's proud fleet. Most were damaged from the fighting at New Geneva, and all of them were running low on supplies. It had been 12 hours since they escaped from New Geneva. The Kalari and Zephyrian ships had not followed them, which surprised Sarah. Maybe the enemy thought the remaining humans were not worth chasing. Or maybe they wanted to focus on destroying the other human worlds first. Commander, we are approaching the coordinates Admiral Webb gave you, reported Navigation Officer Park. But sensors are not showing anything unusual, just rocks and ice. Sarah studied the readouts carefully. The coordinates led to a cluster of large asteroids, but nothing looked special about them. No energy signatures, no artificial structures, nothing that suggested a hidden base. Take us closer to the largest asteroid, Sarah ordered. Webb would not have sent us here for nothing. As they approached, Lieutenant Torres called out from his station. Commander, I am picking up a very weak signal. It is coming from inside the big asteroid, but it is so faint that our sensors almost missed it. Sarah felt a spark of hope. What kind of signal? It looks like a standard human identification code, but it is heavily encrypted. Wait, I think it is responding to our presence. Suddenly, a section of the asteroid's surface began to move. What looked like solid rock slid away, to reveal a hidden entrance large enough for their ships to enter. Lights appeared along the edges, showing a tunnel that led deep into the asteroid. Well, that answers our question, Sarah said quietly. All ships follow the Defiance. Stay alert for anything unusual. The tunnel was longer than Sarah expected. Their ships flew for several minutes through passages that had been carved out of solid rock. Finally, they emerged into a huge hollow space inside the asteroid. What they found there took Sarah's breath away. The hollow space was enormous, easily large enough to hold 100 ships. But it was not empty. Along the walls, Sarah could see laboratories, workshops, and living areas connected by bridges and walkways. The whole place was lit by artificial suns that made everything bright and warm. In the center of the space was a docking platform where their ships could land. As the fleet settled onto the platform, Sarah could see people coming out to meet them. Real humans, not aliens. She had not expected to find anyone alive here. The first person to reach Sarah's ship was a woman in a white lab coat. She was about 50 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. As Sarah walked down the ship's ramp, the woman stepped forward. "Commander Chun, I presume? I am Dr. Elena Vasquez. Admiral Webb told me you might come here someday, though I hoped it would not be necessary." Sarah shook the doctor's hand. "Dr. Vasquez, I need to know what this place is and why Admiral Webb sent us here. We just lost New Geneva, and the enemy is hunting down every human world." Dr. Vasquez nodded sadly. "I know. We have been monitoring the situation. Come with me, Commander. There is much you need to see, and not much time to explain it all." As they walked through the facility, Dr. Vasquez began to tell Sarah about Protocol Lazarus. 3 years ago, Admiral Webb had started the project in complete secrecy. He had been worried that humanity might face total defeat someday, so he wanted to prepare a last resort. "The Admiral brought our best people here," Dr. Vasquez explained as they passed laboratories full of strange equipment. Scientists, engineers, computer experts, even some philosophers and artists. "We have been working on something that no one in the galaxy has ever tried before." They stopped at a large window that looked into a laboratory. Inside, Sarah could see technicians working with what looked like tiny metal insects. Millions of them were moving in perfect coordination, building complex structures that seemed to change and adapt as she watched. "What are those?" Sarah asked. "We call them adaptive nanites," Dr. Vasquez replied. "They are microscopic machines that can learn and evolve. But these are not like the simple nanites that other races use. These are guided by human consciousness." Sarah did not understand. "What do you mean, guided by human consciousness?" Dr. Vasquez led her to another room where a man was sitting in a chair with cables connected to his head. His eyes were closed, but on screens around him, Sarah could see the nanites responding to his thoughts. When he imagined them forming a tool, they built one. When he thought about them becoming a weapon, they transformed again. "We discovered something amazing about human brains," Dr. Vasquez said. "Other alien species think in very organized, predictable ways. Their minds follow logical patterns that can be programmed into machines, but human minds are different. We are chaotic, creative, unpredictable. We can imagine things that have never existed before." The doctor showed Sarah more laboratories where teams of humans were connected to different types of technology. In one room, people were controlling alien computer systems that had been captured from old battles. In another, they were making alien weapons work in ways their original builders never intended. "The nanites learn from human thought patterns," Dr. Vasquez continued. "They become extensions of human creativity and imagination. But more than that, they can spread. When they encounter alien technology, they do not just destroy it. They convert it, making it work like human technology instead." Sarah was beginning to understand, but the idea frightened her. "You are talking about changing people into something that is part machine." "Not changing, Commander. Enhancing. The process is reversible, and the person remains completely human. They just become able to interface directly with technology." Think of it as giving humans the ability to speak directly to machines. Dr. Vasquez led Sarah to a final room where Admiral Webb's personal files were stored. She showed Sarah videos that Webb had recorded explaining his thinking behind Protocol Lazarus. In the videos, Webb looked older and more tired than Sarah remembered. If you are watching this, Sarah, then humanity has suffered a defeat so complete that normal military tactics cannot save us. The enemy has probably used our own weaknesses against us, turned our trust and hope into weapons. Webb continued, but they made one mistake. They assumed that humans would stay the same, that we would keep fighting the same way we always have. Protocol Lazarus is based on the idea that humans are the only species in the galaxy that can truly adapt and change when we need to. The final video showed Webb's last message. The nanite enhancement process is dangerous, Sarah. Not everyone survives it, and those who do are changed forever. But it gives us something no other species has: the ability to turn alien technology against itself. Their greatest strength becomes their weakness when humans get involved. Sarah spent the next several hours learning about the technology and meeting the people who had been working on it. There were about 200 researchers and technicians in the facility, all of them volunteers who had agreed to help with the project, even though they knew they might never see their families. Again, the decision was not easy. Sarah knew that using the nanite enhancement would change humanity forever. It would become something new, something that had never existed in the galaxy before. But looking at the reports coming in from the other human worlds, she realized they had no choice. Mars had fallen. Prometheus was under attack and would not last another day. In a few hours, there would be nowhere left for humans to run. Sarah gathered her senior officers and explained what Protocol Lazarus could do. The discussion was long and difficult, but in the end, everyone agreed. They would rather become something new than let humanity die completely. Dr. Vasquez, Sarah said, we want to volunteer for the enhancement process. All of us. The doctor looked sad but determined. I understand, Commander. But you should know that once we begin, there is no going back. Humanity will never be the same. Sarah thought about Admiral Webb and all the people who had died at Harmony's Edge. She thought about the lies the Kalari had told and the betrayal that had brought them to this point. Most of all, she thought about the enemy fleets that were probably celebrating what they thought was humanity's final defeat. Good, Sarah said firmly. The old humanity was too trusting, too willing to believe that others would treat us fairly. It is time to become something that no one will ever dare to betray again. Sarah Chun opened her eyes and immediately knew that everything had changed. The world looked different now. She could see not just light, but radio waves, heat patterns, and electromagnetic fields. Her mind felt connected to every piece of technology. In the room, as if the machines were extensions of her own body, the nanite enhancement process had taken 3 days. Sarah was the first to volunteer, followed by her senior officers, and then the rest of the crew. Dr. Vasquez had warned them that the process was dangerous, and she had been right. 12 people had not survived the enhancement. Their bodies had rejected the nanites, and there was nothing the doctors could do to save them. But those who survived had become something new. Sarah could feel the presence of every other enhanced human in the facility. They were still individuals, but they were also connected in a way that was hard to describe. When one person learned something new, the knowledge spread to everyone else almost instantly. How do you feel, Commander? Dr. Vasquez asked. She had chosen not to undergo the enhancement herself, preferring to stay normal so she could help guide the others. Different, Sarah replied. I can sense our ships in the docking bay. I know exactly how much power they have left, what systems need repair, everything. It is like they are part of me now. Dr. Vasquez nodded. That is normal. The nanets create a link between your nervous system and any technology you encounter. But the real test will come when you encounter alien technology. Sarah did not have to wait long for that test. While she had been undergoing enhancement, the war had continued. Reports from the galaxy showed that the Kalari and Zephyrians had finished destroying the remaining human worlds. They were now broadcasting messages claiming that humanity had been completely eliminated. But they had made one mistake. A small Zephyrian patrol had discovered the asteroid facility and was coming to investigate. 3 enemy ships were approaching, probably thinking they would find nothing but empty rock and ice. Sarah felt a strange excitement as she prepared for her first battle as an enhanced human. She could sense the approaching ships through their own sensors, understanding their technology in ways that should have been impossible. The Zephyrian vessels were using standard military designs, with predictable weapon systems and simple computer networks. All enhanced personnel to battle stations, Sarah ordered. But the command was unnecessary. Everyone already knew what she wanted them to do, because they shared the same connected consciousness. The first Zephyrian ship entered the asteroid field, expecting to find nothing dangerous. Instead, Sarah's enhanced crew used the nanets to take control of a mining robot that had been left floating near the asteroid. The robot looked harmless, but the nanets quickly converted it into something much more dangerous. When the Zephyrian ship scanned the robot, the nanets spread through their scanning beam and infected their computer systems. Within minutes, the alien crew found that their own ship was no longer obeying their commands. Weapon systems turned to face their own fleet. Navigation computers sent them spinning out of control. Life support systems began shutting down randomly. The second and third Zephyrian ships tried to help their companion, but that only made things worse. The nanets spread from ship to ship through their communication links. Soon, all 3 vessels were completely under Sarah's control. But Sarah did not destroy the ships. Instead, she did something that would have been impossible for normal humans. Using the nanets, she reached into the minds of the Zephyrian crew members and began to understand how they thought. Zephyrians were logical creatures who believed that strength came from following rules and maintaining order. Their society was built on the idea that there was always a correct way to do things, and that chaos was the greatest evil. They had attacked humanity because they saw human unpredictability as a threat to galactic order. Sarah smiled as she realized how to use this knowledge. Through the nanets, she began introducing small amounts of chaos into the Zephyrian ships. Nothing dangerous, just tiny random events that made no logical sense. Lights would flicker in patterns that had no meaning. Computer displays would show impossible numbers. Food replicators would produce meals in strange colors. The effect on the Zephyrian crews was immediate and dramatic. Faced with events that did not follow any logical pattern, they began to panic. Their rigid minds could not handle true randomness, and many of them started making mistakes or breaking down completely. Within hours, word of the strange incident spread through the Zephyrian military network. 3 ships had been found drifting in space, their crews alive but completely traumatized. The ships themselves were undamaged, but they were behaving in ways that made no sense to Zephyrian engineers. Sarah realized that she had discovered a new kind of weapon. The nanets did not just control alien technology. They could introduce human-style thinking into alien minds, causing psychological damage that was much more effective than physical destruction. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and her enhanced crew began a campaign that the galaxy had never seen before. They did not attack military targets directly. Instead, they focused on spreading chaos and confusion through the enemy's communication networks. Using captured Zephyrian ships, they traveled to different systems and introduced nanets into alien computer networks. The nanets did not destroy anything important. They just made everything work in slightly unpredictable ways. Elevator systems would sometimes skip floors for no reason. Traffic control computers would create beautiful but inefficient patterns. Military databases would occasionally replace serious reports with human poetry. The psychological effect was devastating. Zephyrian society began to break down as their people lost confidence in their technology and leadership. Kalari leaders, who prided themselves on perfect order and crystal-clear thinking, found their own thoughts becoming confused and chaotic. But Sarah's greatest success came when she targeted the Kalari homeworld of Serenhai. The planet was the center of Kalari civilization, where their greatest philosophers and leaders lived in perfect harmony. It was also completely dependent on advanced computer systems to manage everything from weather control to food distribution. Sarah's team did not attack Serenhai directly. Instead, they used a small probe infected with nanits to transmit a simple message to the planet's communication network. The message claimed to be a standard diplomatic update, but it carried a hidden payload. Within days, every computer system on Serenhai was infected with nanits programmed to introduce small amounts of human creativity and unpredictability. The effects started small but grew rapidly. Art installations began changing their patterns randomly. Weather control systems started creating clouds in beautiful but impractical shapes. Even the Kalari's famous crystal gardens began growing in chaotic, asymmetrical patterns. The Kalari leadership tried to stop the changes, but they found that their own people were beginning to like the unpredictability. Young Kalari especially were fascinated by the random beauty that the nanits were creating. For the first time in their history, Kalari citizens began to question whether perfect order was really the best way to live. The infection spread to other Kalari worlds through their communication networks. Within months, Kalari society was experiencing something it had never known before: civil disagreement. Some Kalari wanted to return to perfect order, while others embraced the new chaos. The civilization that had seemed so unified began to split into different factions. Meanwhile, the alliance between the Kalari and Zephyrian started to collapse. Both species blamed the other for the strange events that were happening to their technology and societies. Trust broke down as each side suspected the other of sabotage. Sarah watched these developments from her hidden base and realized that humanity had found a way to win without firing a shot. By introducing human unpredictability into alien minds and machines, they were causing their enemies to defeat themselves. But the real surprise came when other alien species began to contact the humans directly. Races that had stayed neutral during the war were now curious about these mysterious beings who could make technology behave in impossible ways. Some wanted to form alliances, while others simply wanted to understand how humans thought. Sarah knew that the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not just survived betrayal and near extinction. They had become something new, something that could reshape entire civilizations just by being themselves. The age of human dominance was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the betrayal at Harmony's Edge, and the galaxy was no longer the same place. Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the New Terra, humanity's first great ship built from converted alien technology. The vessel was enormous, larger than any ship the galaxy had ever seen, but it had been constructed in only 3 weeks using nanite-enhanced human workers and captured alien vessels. Around New Terra, a fleet of 300 ships moved in perfect formation. Most of them had started as Zephyrian or Kalari vessels, but the nanits had transformed them into something completely new. They still looked like alien ships from the outside, but inside they thought and acted like extensions of human consciousness. Sarah herself was barely recognizable as the desperate commander who had fled New Geneva 6 months ago. The nanits had not changed her appearance much, but her eyes now glowed with a soft blue light, and her movements had a fluid grace that came from being perfectly connected to every system around her. She was still human, but she was also something more. "Commander, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 more Kalari systems," reported Lieutenant Torres. He had also been enhanced, and like all the enhanced humans, he could process information at incredible speeds. That brings the total to over 60% of their territory. Sarah nodded but felt no satisfaction from the news. The Kalari Collective was falling apart, but not because humanity had destroyed them. Instead, the introduction of chaos and creativity into their society had caused them to question everything they had believed for thousands of years. Many Kalari worlds had declared independence from the central government, while others had formed new alliances based on artistic and philosophical ideas rather than rigid order. "What about the Zephyrians?" Sarah asked. "Still fighting, but their empire is breaking into smaller pieces every day. The nanites we introduced into their military networks have made it impossible for them to coordinate large-scale operations. Most of their fleets are operating independently now, and many have stopped attacking anyone at all." Sarah walked to the main viewing screen, which showed the space around what used to be called the neutral zone. It was no longer neutral. Dozens of alien species had sent representatives to meet with humanity, seeking to understand these strange beings who had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The transformation had not been easy for humanity either. Of the original human survivors, about half had chosen to undergo nanite enhancement. The others preferred to remain unmodified, serving as a link to humanity's past and helping to keep the enhanced humans connected to their original nature. Dr. Vasquez had been right when she said that enhanced humans were still human. But they were also something new. They could think faster, understand alien technology instinctively, and share knowledge instantly with other enhanced humans. But they had also retained human creativity, emotion, and the ability to form individual relationships. "Commander, incoming transmission from the Hegemony Council," Torres announced. "They are requesting an immediate audience." The Hegemony Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a central government. It was made up of representatives from the 12 most powerful alien species, and they had been trying to contact humanity for weeks. Sarah had been ignoring their messages, but she knew she would have to talk to them eventually. "Put them through," Sarah said. The main screen changed to show a conference room where 12 very different alien beings sat around a circular table. Sarah recognized most of them from intelligence reports. There was Coordinator Vex from the Arcturian Republic, High Merchant Kaal from the Traders Union, and several others representing different galactic powers. The one who spoke first was Ambassador Thane, a tall, thin being with silver skin who represented the oldest civilization in the galaxy. "Commander Chun, we need to discuss the current situation. Your actions have disrupted the stability of 3 major sectors." Sarah smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Ambassador Thane, I think you mean that our survival has disrupted your plans. 6 months ago, you all watched while the Kalari and Zephyrians tried to exterminate humanity. None of you lifted a finger to help. The Kalari assured us that the conflict was being resolved through diplomatic means," Coordinator Vex protested. "We had no knowledge of their true intentions." "But you did nothing to verify their claims," Sarah replied. "You were content to let humanity die as long as it did not affect your own interests. Now you want to talk because we have become something you cannot ignore." High Merchant Kaal leaned forward. "Commander, what exactly do you want from the galaxy? Your technology is clearly superior to anything we have seen. Your methods of warfare are beyond our understanding. Are you planning to conquer us all?" Sarah considered the question carefully. The enhanced humans could probably conquer most of the galaxy if they wanted to. Their ability to convert alien technology and introduce chaos into ordered systems made them nearly unstoppable, but conquest was not what she wanted. "We want what we should have had from the beginning," Sarah said. "Respect. Recognition that humanity has a right to exist and grow, and assurance that no one will ever again try to eliminate us when they think we are weak." "What kind of assurance?" Ambassador Thane asked carefully. Sarah gestured, and the screen showed images of human colonies being rebuilt. But these were not the same kind of colonies that had existed before the war. The new human settlements were marvels of integrated technology, where nanite-enhanced humans worked alongside unmodified people to create something unprecedented. "We are rebuilding our civilization," Sarah explained. "But we are also establishing monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Any species that threatens genocide against any other species will find their technology becoming unreliable in creative and interesting ways." The alien representatives looked uncomfortable with this idea. "You are appointing yourselves as Galactic Police?" Coordinator Vex asked. "We are ensuring that what happened to us never happens to anyone else," Sarah corrected. "The galaxy has been ruled by the strong preying on the weak for too long. That ends now." Ambassador Thane was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that Sarah had been expecting. "And if we refuse to accept your authority?" Sarah's smile became genuinely dangerous. "Then you will discover what the Kalari and Zephyrians learned. Human creativity is infinite, Ambassador. We can find ways to make your technology misbehave that you cannot even imagine. Your ships will play music instead of firing weapons. Your computers will write poetry instead of calculating navigation. Your communication systems will tell jokes instead of sending military orders." "That sounds like a threat, High Merchant." Call said. "It is a promise," Sarah replied. "But it is also an opportunity. Work with us, and you will discover that human creativity can benefit your civilizations as much as it can disrupt them. We can help you solve problems in ways you never considered. We can introduce innovation and adaptation to societies that have become stagnant." Over the next hour, Sarah outlined humanity's terms for galactic peace. They were not demanding territory or tribute. Instead, they wanted a new kind of galactic council where no single species could dominate others. They wanted trade agreements that benefited smaller civilizations as well as large ones. Most importantly, they wanted a galaxy where survival did not depend on military strength alone. Some of the alien representatives agreed immediately, recognizing that cooperation with humanity was better than opposition. Others asked for time to consult with their governments. A few seemed angry at the idea of accepting human authority, but Sarah could see in their eyes that they understood the consequences of refusal. After the conference ended, Sarah stood alone on the bridge of New Terra, looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Torres joined her, followed by Dr. Vasquez, who had chosen to remain unenhanced but continued to serve as an advisor. "Do you think they will accept our terms?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "Most of them will," Sarah replied. "And those who do not will change their minds when they realize what we can do to their technology. We have given them a choice between cooperation and chaos." Torres smiled. "The Kalari and Zephyrians thought they were destroying us at our weakest moment. Instead, they forced us to become stronger than anyone in the galaxy." Sarah nodded, remembering Admiral Webb and all the humans who had died because they trusted in peace and diplomacy. The old humanity had been too willing to believe that others would treat them fairly. The new humanity would never make that mistake again. "We were betrayed when we offered friendship," Sarah said quietly. "We were attacked when we sought peace. We were nearly exterminated when we were at our weakest. But we survived, and we learned. Now the galaxy will learn what happens when you push humanity too far." She turned to face her companions, her blue glowing eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "The age of humanity has begun. And this time, none will be spared who threaten the innocent."